Zedek vegeit salmavet lidaraki ataimadi. Shivtecha umishanetecha emayinachamuni. Taroch lefanei shulchan neget soredai. Disha'anta vashemen roshi kosirevaya. Ahachto vachesed yedefuni kol yemei chayai. Veshavti bebeit Adonai leorech yamim. The words of the 23rd Psalm, Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. Giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit. Guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness, kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. That's okay. No. Just looking at everyone. Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out this morning. Also, welcome everyone at home. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Rabah Mas from Congregation Shaarey Zedek, and it's my great honor to be here with all of you, officiating the funeral services for Oscar Antel, Zichrono Libracha of blessed memory. Oscar was also known to the Jewish people by his Hebrew name, Osher, ben label of Vital, Zichrono Libracha, blessed memory. He was the son, label, and Vital of blessed memory, the husband of the late Bella Antel, Zichrono Libracha, the brother of Shirley Godkin, Zichrono Libracha, father Jack and Avis Antel, Shelly Antel of blessed memory, and Joel and Bonnie Antel. The grandfather of Samson and Daisy, Dory and Rocco, Eli and Leslie, Dana, Ellie, Zach and Shayla, Daryl and Lara, Becky and Daniel. The great-grandfather of Ryan, Adam, Ailey, Isabel, Zoe, Shep, Danny, Jordy, Zev, Micah, and Saul. Oscar passed away on Monday, February 19th, at the age of 100, just a couple of weeks shy from his 101st birthday. devoted to his family, always available to family and friends for wise advice, a hard-working man, opinionated, and also ready to defend his position with flawless arguments. Leader of the Yiddish culture in Winnipeg. These are some of the things that Oscar's family shared with me to beautifully summarize Oscar's fruitful life. But if after all I heard for the meeting that we have was a little bit over an hour long, if I had to summarize Oscar's life, it would be Mr. Yiddish. You see, over the centuries, Jews developed languages such as Yiddish, Ladino, etc. These languages reflected Jewish societies that were largely cut off from the larger societies around them. Jews spoke their own languages, ran their own schools, published their own books and their own newspapers. For most Jews today, the need for maintaining a distinctive Jewish language no longer apply. Jews speak the language of the land as their mother tongue with no problem. But the sages of the Talmudic era already told us that one of the saving graces of the people of Israel back in Egypt was the fact that they did not forget their language. This reflects a certain reality, that preserving a language goes hand in hand with preserving a culture and an identity. It is not a secret that Oscar Antel was a referent of the Yiddish culture in Winnipeg. He was one of the most famous experts of the language. Thanks to people like Oscar Antel, Yiddish continues to tell a story, keeping a culture and an identity alive. But Oscar's life involves so much more than Yiddish. As you will hear in a few minutes in the eulogies, Oscar was a family man, hard worker, and a good friend. Now, the purpose of a eulogy is twofold. Following in the steps of Abraham, the eulogy is to praise the deceased by mentioning his good deeds and worthy qualities. The second purpose is to express the grief and sense of loss experienced by the mourners, and in the case of Oscar Antel, the entire Jewish community. That's why I would like to invite some of the people who knew him better than me to come to the microphone to eulogize Oscar Antel. So I would like to begin with Jack. Zach first.
Thank you everyone for coming today. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our Zeta, or Big Zeta, as he was styled by Ryan, his eldest grandchild. I know we're feeling grateful for how long we were able to know him and for the way he enriched all of our lives. So I'll share some stories and fond memories that all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren have shared with me. Zeta enjoyed sharing his knowledge and helping with big decisions through rigorous debate. He was always up for playing the steel man or straw man when you had things you had to hash out or you had a big decision to make. Zeta could always be counted on for financial advice, and he was always glad when you came to ask him. he could also Google things. Dana mentioned to me that her fellow MBA students were very surprised to hear when they came to him for help on a project, he Googled their question. Yes, Zeta was tech savvy. His favorite pieces of cutting-edge tech were his iPhone and his calculator watch. You see, in our family, it's not the kids that have to limit screen time, it's Zeta. Zeta, time to put down the phone, not at the dinner table, please. Zeta also made us feel like we had roots, important roots that told a story about our family and helped us understand where we came from, which was such a special thing to give to us. And I think maybe inspired cousin Samson, who has learned all there is to know about the Antel family tree. Speaking of storytelling, Zeta was the best storyteller. He would tell stories about the old country, fantastic, sometimes wonderfully scary stories about wolves and perilous trips to town to buy a goose for dinner. Dana and Ellie told me that Zeta was often around to help with bedtime when their mom went back to school, and it seems over the course of many bedtimes, he would parse out episodes of a story about a man marooned in the jungle raised by apes as one of their own. And only recently did they learn this was in fact the story of Tarzan and not a Zeta original. But I think it's public domain now, so we're okay. He was an excellent tennis player, playing into his 80s, I think. And playing tennis in Palm Springs with his grandchildren brought him a lot of joy, because he could easily beat them. And he once woke Dory up at the crack of dawn to fill in for doubles, proceeding to kick her butt. Big Zeta was also famous. If you walked into any room and not before the name Antel left your lips, people would jump to their feet talking about what a talented professional he was, or how he helped them in a small way that made a big difference in their life. He also served as a sort of Ed McMahon type to Noah Whitman's Johnny Carson on a public access Yiddish television show. Zeta was a serious guy at times, but I think he lightened up with the addition of each grandchild and great-grandchild. And Daryl tells me he was always asking how was little Saul Oscar, the youngest great-grandchild, who Zeta agreed could be named after him in advance, just in case. Because Zeta had a dark sense of humor that can lighten the darkest of moods. And I'll tell you this off-color story, but it's something I'm thinking about today. That years ago at my Zeta Albert's funeral, he said to me, "So this is what my funeral will be like. How interesting to have a preview." Yeah. He was a great dinner guest, as many of you here will know, you can attest to, and he always found creative ways to make certain there was ketchup around. And he must have had a thing with tomatoes, because he would often come to my garden, our garden, and when we weren't home, he would swipe tomatoes. But we're even because he was always reliable for a chocolate bar for one of my kids when we came to visit him at the Shaftesbury. I'm going to always remember Zeta, as he described himself to me, as a young man doing Jeannie's Cake Bakery's bookkeeping with one hand on the books and the other in a vat of icing, snacking away. Family was important to Zeta, and I know we're all thinking back fondly of summer visits and yontifs together, all of us in Winnipeg, with Baba Bella keeping the kids ramped up and goofy, while Zeta would balance out her energy. They were the perfect pair. We were so lucky to help him celebrate his 100th birthday last year and show him how much we loved him. Having everyone around him and together was the best birthday present he could have asked for, and he was glowing that day. We are sad to say goodbye today, but I know we're all feeling grateful for the time that we had with him.
Thank you, Zach. I learned both about my father and about my nephews, nieces, and my own children. So that was I don't think that any of us were prepared in advance for this, as we all seemed to expect that my dad would go on indefinitely. He was always there for us, and as Zach mentioned, for the family, he was Big Zeta. It's very hard to review a life of almost 101 years. None of us were there for all of those events. Very moving for me was to receive messages from my contemporaries who knew my dad, either directly or through their parents. They all indicated the high regard that they had for him. My dad was always so able to express what were his interests and what things were most meaningful for him, and that he would act on all of these. What was meaningful for him covered a wide range, with his family being foremost. How he cared for our mother during her illness was really quite remarkable. And he stated how his life was so worthwhile, with the exception of losing our sister Shaarey. His society and community activities began at a very young age. His high school years actually coincided with the outbreak of World War II. And after graduation, he volunteered for the Canadian Air Forces and was part of the D-Day operations. After the war, and then with a family, and still while working, he undertook his university education to obtain his Chartered Accountancy degree, his CA. He became highly recognized for his professional work and his contributions to the profession. He was awarded a fellowship, which was called the FCA. So important to my dad was the community, especially Yiddish culture and education. For many years, he was a leader in the Winnipeg Jewish community, and even at the national level of the Canadian Jewish Congress. He was a pillar of the Parrott School. My brother and I are very grateful to all of you who have joined us here on site and joined us online. Most of you will have had the opportunity to interact with our dad in one of his many capacities that Zach and I mentioned. As our cousin John Mann, with whom we shared a memorable trip to Dombrovitz, the family shtetl, if you will, pointed out as our father, as a modest man with large accomplishments, someone who led a good life. He was always supportive, and he was a real mensch. When asked about how he was doing at the age of 100, he simply said, "I don't know what I can compare this to." Dad, we're so grateful for all the time that we could spend together.
Thank you so much for such beautiful tributes to Oscar's memory. May his memory be a blessing and a source of comfort for all of you. And let us all say, Amen. I'm going to continue now with the memorial prayer, El Maleh Rachamim. El Maleh Rachamim Shochem Bameroimim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah V'ma'alot Kedoshim Kedoshim Uteorim Kezoyer Rakim Amazirim Eden Ishemat Eden Ishemat Osher Ben Leibel Uvitel She'alach Leolamo Bavur Shanu Mitpalelim Ve'ad Azkarat Nishematu Began Eitein Began Eidentei Menuchatu Lachem Balarachamim Astir Eyu Veseder Gena Avam Leulamim Utzerur Bitznorachayim Achai met nishemato, Adonai unachalato, Veyanuach veshalom, Al mishkavo, Venomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Oscar Antel, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. The Mourner's Kaddish. Itgadal ve'itgadash shemei Rabah. Ve'almad v'rach iruteh ve'yamlich malchuteh v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayeh dechol Beit Israel v'agalau v'zman kari ve'imru. Amen. Yehe shemei Rabah mevarach le'alam u'le'almei olmaya. Itbarach ve'yishtavach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yitale ve'yithalal shemei dekudesha brihu leila min kol virchata ve'shirata tushvechata ve'nechemata damiram ve'alma v'imeru. Amen. Yehe shlama Rabah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Israel v'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom imromav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Israel v'imeru. Amen. Amakom yinachem etchem v'tov sharav le'tzion b'Yerushalayim. May God bless you and comfort you. And let us all say, Amen. In a minute, we are going to proceed with the burial part of the service, for which there is an open invitation for all of you to come forward to pick up a shovel and to put a little bit of earth on top of Oscar's coffin. Before that, I have a few announcements. First, we'd like to let you know that immediately after we continue with the next step, everybody's invited to partake the meal of consolation that is going to take place at Temple Shalom. And for the Shiva, it's going to be 2 days for all of you to visit the family. Tonight, from 7 to 9 p.m. and tomorrow, 2 to 4 p.m. It's going to be at 1414 Mathers Bay East. Again, 1414 Mathers Bay East. Tonight, 7 to 9 p.m. with the service being chanted at 7:30 p.m. and tomorrow, 2 to 4 p.m. Everybody's invited to come and to visit and to share perhaps some stories of Oscar with the family. So I would like to invite now immediate family first. Joel, Jack should be the first one. Then I would like to invite the rest of the family and friends to come forward. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to all of you at home for tuning in.